one of your members was over at Park and Rec. He said he'd be over in that.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to the, what month are we in? March 8th, 2020 Park and Rec meeting. Let's start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Fred, you want to lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So we have a pretty full agenda tonight. We have potentially some commissioner updates if we've been to any subcommittee meetings or committee meetings outside of this one. We have some minutes. We have a request from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to install some water stations at Long Lake Beach and 300 King Street. We have a request for approval to remove a tree that's leaning severely at Long Lake Beach. We have a request for approval of some wage adjustments. We have a request to obtain an alcohol license from the Board of Selectmen for special events and adult programming. We have a request to close the office at 2 p.m. on Thursday, March 26th. Discussion and planning for some damage of the parking at 300 King. We will get an update on a statistically valid survey that Tim has been working on. We have Alicia's director's report. Tim's going to go over some events that we've had, past events and upcoming events. We have some old business to discuss, and then new business regarding COVID-19, if anybody's interested in how our department's handling that in some of our areas. Skip ahead to the end of the meeting if you're watching it on LCTV, or stick around tonight. So with that, if anybody has any updates, if you've been to any other committees. I have not.
I have none.
Mike, anything?
Well, I'm sure I sent you that email on the last meeting. If we're thinking, they're taking requests for, based on, if you take a look at minutes for the last meeting of what's not going to be funded this year. There was some discussion about possibly putting a request in.
What are we talking about, Mike? Who's they?
For the CPC
Okay.
commission.
Oh,
Yep.
right.
Right. So, I mean, if these are capital projects that, that we don't have any funding from the town on the horizon, I think they're all, with the exception for the field, there's not enough funds there. Somehow to make that work, you'd have to figure out other avenues for funding. But some of the other ones, certainly we could put in a request, for CPC funds. So.
Okay. Is that a pressing issue? Does that when would we need to bring stuff to them?
I don't think it's a pressing issue. You have to get it approved.
Mm-hmm.
Is a pressing issue.
Yeah.
We weren't planning on moving forward with anything, but the pressing issue is that everything would have to be, there'd have to be an article written and put into the
Correct.
warrant, which is probably going to close relatively soon for the May town meeting. So at this point in time, we weren't moving forward with requesting any CPC funds.
Okay.
All right. So we can go over the minutes that Mike was just referencing from February 11th.
I just noticed a typo, grammatical typo. Second page. At the bottom, looks like the BOS and FinCom are going to move forward in support. Should be in instead of is.
One more time?
Replace his with him.
Okay.
motion when you guys are ready.
I move that we accept the minutes as amended for the February 2020 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, based on these minutes, we received, we're still getting, as far as our department and what the town is giving us, we're still receiving money for your, Alicia and Tim's salary.
Correct.
$40,000 for
Capital.
major equipment and repairs, which is typical, or don't we usually ask for 50?
We do,
Okay.
but we were asked to itemize out the utilities from that request.
Okay,
So that's why the
So
15,000
then-
is
so-
in that new utility.
and then the
fund.
next line, so, and we, in addition to that, $15,000 for a new line, for electricity, water, porta potty rentals, stuff you just cited.
Yep.
But we were denied everything else, correct?
Yep, correct.
So
So we'll
no
talk
money-
about that later in director's report.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have a request from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to endorse a project that would install water stations at Long Lake Beach and 300 King Street. I assume you're Jerry.
I'm Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Should I move up there?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure you have a good amount
I
to say.
have two
So.
handouts, pictures, if you'd like to pass them.
I think we have these, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got them in our packet. Yeah.
Okay. So Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee is charged with advising the selectmen on ways of enhancing non-motorized transportation, I guess that's what it is about. And one of the things I've noticed when I cycle around the towns is there's a couple of towns like Harvard and Concord have really nice water stations. It tends to attract people. But also, since everybody's trying to be more sustainable, eliminate bottles, and some people just forget their water, it would be nice to put some watering stations in some of the more traveled places around the town. So we thought of the two places that we've already put bicycle racks, which are Long Lake Beach and the park, Castle in the Trees, because they seem to be the places around town that have biggest concentration of people. So I put pictures in there, kind of put in there what it would look like.
Yep.
So the idea is that we're trying to raise funding for them. We went to Vince Cooper Foundation, I made a pitch there, and I went to the Rotary. And as you stated, I think, I'm only asking for your endorsement because it's on your property, and any ideas you may have on how we can raise some funding. So that's going to cost about $5,000 each to purchase them, and then we're hoping we can get the Water Department and the Highway Department to do the installation for us. So there's precedent for that because they installed the bike racks for us. They did a very nice job on it. So these watering stations, I noticed them, I take the train to Concord, and they have 11 or 12 of these around town. When they put their ban on single water bottles, they in turn put these all over the place. And it's been there about 4 years now, and they seem to still be working okay. They're vandal resistant, they're freeze resistant, they still have to be shut off in the dead of winter, but you can go fall and spring with them. You spend a little less money and do without the dog watering dish, but I'm trying to pull in especially at Long Lake, I think it's a little redundant. Most dogs will just go right to the lake and get a drink, but I'm
Well,
trying
we don't
to-
actually allow dogs on the beach.
Yeah.
No dogs.
Okay, well, then,
Maybe we can get one for 4,000 without the dog dish.
well, this is gonna be up by the parking lot. I just know at night when I go swimming there, there's a lot of dogs on the beach.
Yeah.
Anyway, we trying to pull in all the constituencies. Some people are dog people, some people are children people. So I figured if I got for all three people, and the water bottle filler I think is great for 80% of the people, that it would be easier to get the donations to make this happen.
Yeah.
Let's see, Town of Concord, I think I covered just about everything. We'd have to get the water department on board to shut it off and turn it on in the spring and fall. But it's proven out. Like I said, it's been working in Concord for 4 years. It's wicked expensive, so it must be good. $5,000 for a water fountain.
Yeah.
And it covers, all the basics people to have. So I don't know. Alicia, thank you for making this appointment for me so quickly from the time I talked to you.
No problem.
I appreciate that. And I understand you have a watering requirement as well. some of your sites, you're supposed to get water out?
No.
No? Okay, forget that then. You just do it out of the goodness of your hearts then, I think this is a good thing to do.
I think it's great. I think the locations are perfect for where, places that people need water. I have a couple concerns, I guess. The vandalization, they're vandal-proof.
Resistant?
Vandal-resistant, right, thank you. So I guess my question would be, let's say one of these is vandalized to the point of disrepair. Do we raise money to do another one? I'm just concerned that people would look to us when we're, an enterprise fund and we don't make profit. I'm just concerned that the community would look to us to replace it on short order without having, the funds needed. That and as well as the water bill that we would presumably incur. So if we were a for-profit department, I'd be happy to figure out a way to fund those. And maybe, based on the discussion we'll have here, I'm not necessarily against it. It's just a concern in how we make those ends meet.
Yeah.
So those are just my two main concerns.
know
Other than
for
that,
the-
I think it's a fantastic
Town
idea.
gardens, they put water in for the people to water the gardens, and they're not charging them for that. So I don't know if the water department would actually charge us for water. I mean, that's something I would request, that they not charge us, not need
So
the
we do
water.
receive a utility bill for the beach every single month for water, currently.
Okay.
So that is something we can ask of the water department.
Mhm.
I know there's issues. When I was working on the fields, before I was even on this committee, I was hammering members of the school committee that I know, like, why are we paying for water? Why can't the water department just, donate the water to us as a town entity? And there's laws involved because it's a kind of a quasi-town department. They can't do it. But maybe there's a creative way that we could recoup some of that money from the water department. So I'd be happy to have those discussions and talk to Jim Carr, who's the chairman of the commissioners there.
And we'd have
see
to
if there's
calculate out how much water would really be used. I'm sure
Right.
I could get some figures from Concord.
Yeah, that maybe perhaps the bill is $100 a year. I mean, I'm sure it's more than that, but maybe it's not insurmountable, and we can figure out a way to fund it as a community as well. So they're not.
And as far as replacing it, yeah, I guess we could go out and buy an insurance policy on it, but I don't know, the overhead on that would probably be more than it's worth.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with you.
I think that-
So one thing that I think is important to point out with both the positions or locations that were selected, there is currently no water to either one of these locations, and you'd have to trench the parking lots to get to the said locations. So at Fay Park, the only existing water is, there's a hydrant that is located by not Fay Park, at 300 King Street. There is an existing water tap that was installed by the flagpole at the front of the park, but there is no electric, there's no water that runs towards the back of the park. And at Long Lake Beach, the water main is actually in the bathhouse. We don't have any water on the bicycle rack side of the park. The only water runs from the bathhouse down to the boat ramp, where the hydrant is because it's necessary for people to wash boats so they're not transporting invasive species into the water. So all of the infrastructure that would be needed for this needs to be taken into consideration. We would need to talk about trenching, we would need to talk about piping, we would need to talk about replacing the parking lot that we had to cut up in order to get there. So just wanted to point both of those things out.
What about relocating it to where?
Yeah, so I think
Points at this point.
I think that's something I didn't think of, Tim. So that's a great point. But the locations that you've suggested look prime to me. That's where I would put them if I had a choice. But perhaps we need to think about the location a little bit.
Right, those are picked with no regard to
Right.
accessibility to water, just for where it would be best for
Yeah,
people.
and I would have put them in the same spots. So maybe we need to. I mean,
Yeah.
let's take a look at what the cost is to do that. Talk to people.
Well, I'll go to the water department. I
Yeah,
guess
okay.
I would owe them a call, and then see what they think about it.
Yeah, and if you set up to go to one of their meetings, I'd be happy to attend with you,
Okay,
and
okay.
we can make it a joint effort.
The 5,000 is just for the unit itself,
Just for the unit itself.
and then you're hoping that the water department just install it without fee.
That's what we're hoping.
I think it'd be vandalism proof for $5,000.
It was pretty darn resistant.
Resistant, that's like a water-resistant watch.
So the one point
don't
that
get
I
it
do
wet.
want to make about that, that Fred's probably the only person on the board now that remembers, but we used to actually have a water fountain at the beach, and we did have to remove it. The commission at that time decided to remove it entirely because the vandalism to the water fountain itself, and the cost just became astronomical.
Did we have cameras down there then?
Yeah, not that great though, so it is.
So I think
a bit
that's maybe
different.
something else to take
Yep.
into consideration, especially at the beach where we have the security cameras, is to put it within view of those. As far as the park goes,
So I think the other opportunity that you have at the beach that you don't have at 300 King is, if you wanted to look at a different type of unit, you could also look at mounting this inside the bathhouse where it's still accessible for most of the time, but it would be locked up at nighttime. The other opportunity is, do we look at one of the walls on the new Snack Shack building and see if it's somewhere where we could put it and even put like a lockable cover over it in the off season? I think that might be a good solution for down there.
Another question would be, who's gonna own these? And I, own is sort of in air quotes, but once they're in,
Yeah.
who's, we need to know who's responsible for maintaining them, if they need to be repaired, who's repairing them, and a time frame for getting them repaired. So if it's sitting there for 6 months broken, Alicia and Tim aren't getting phone calls for 5 months saying, why haven't you fixed this? And, we don't have it in the budget to suddenly add additional projects in like this.
Right.
So I do think, to be fair to Jerry, because I think the one thing that you meant to say is there is currently legislation in the Massachusetts Senate that will make it mandatory for us to have water available at all of our park locations.
It has not gone.
So it
through.
hasn't gone through yet, but this is something that we are going to have to think about in the very near future as a solution for everywhere. And you're anywhere that's like a public visited place with parks or trails or playgrounds or anything, you're going to have public access to water, free water.
yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anyone that's against it.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so
I know that at the beginning we had kind of said, no, that wasn't the case, but it could very well be the case very shortly.
that we need to have water.
You will need
That
to
we currently
supply
don't
it.
have.
There's a bill and legislation that's going through. It has not gone through yet, so it's not a requirement, but it could,
So it could be
Really at any
a cost
time.
that the town's gonna have to incur anyways.
if that bill would go through.
Right.
Correct, yes.
Which probably will. Mike, get anything? Sean? No?
I would love to see water at the parks as a person with kids and a
Yeah.
dog, but, a lot of answers I think we need to have before we can really say we can
Yeah.
get on board with it, but something that would be
I agree, it's a worthwhile endeavor. for
very
sure.
supportive of.
Okay, so I think next steps will be to talk to the water department.
Yeah, so what I took on my future visits, mentioned to people are that we want them, they're only vandal resistant, so we'd like to have them in view of the cameras, because vandalism seems to be a big concern with this board. And who owns it for replacement and for paying for the water
Yeah.
as well. And then the cost of installing them based upon how close they are to water main. Water department can answer that.
Yeah, and, we could certainly talk to the selectmen as well, as far as funding the water. Maybe they can slip something else into our capital budget to help pay for that.
Okay.
So, if we run into a dead end at the water department, we can certainly go talk to the board of selectmen. And I can, start having some of those preliminary conversations with them at a time, just let them know what's up.
So I'll make an appointment with the water department, and I'll let you guys know when I'm gonna go there, and if you want, I certainly appreciate your support.
Yeah?
For, just a side thought, for site selection, you might want to loop the highway department in as far as snow removal. Is there any areas where they're pushing snow, I don't know. I assume the highway department plows those lots, just to make sure that it's not an area that would impact.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Okay. That's all I have.
Do you guys have like a list of next steps that you want?
So
Report back.
we'll talk to the water department. I'm happy to go with Jerry if he wants to invite me along with him. If it's a formal committee meeting. And then we need to figure out the other costs that we didn't factor into the $5,000.
Yeah.
location. I think that's really, owner.
When are you looking for your endorsement by, I guess is my question, for town meeting?
I
or-
don't really have a schedule.
Okay.
The main thing is getting some funds, so I haven't gotten an answer back from either Rotary or this Cooper Fund.
Okay,
Once I get the funding for it, then I think we'll be rolling along a little quicker. Right now, it's just talk.
okay.
Yeah, and I can't, speak for myself, unless, we find out it's gonna cost us $10,000 a year to operate them, I can't see myself voting against installing them, so I would continue to pursue your funding. I don't think we're gonna, stand in the way, we just wanna make sure that, all the i's are dotted, t's are crossed,
Okay.
and we're not going to be left with a bill that we can't pay.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I understand your concerns, and I appreciate your time.
Awesome, thanks for coming in.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Great idea. All right, next on the agenda is the request for approval to remove the leaning Scots pine at Long Lake Beach and replace with shade trees, plural.
Correct.
Who's on that one?
I am. So as part of our beach revitalization improvement plan, one of the things that we had discussed was the tree that stands in front of the bathhouse. Multiple issues that we have with the tree. Number one, it does create a clear and present opportunity for it to fall over if the right storm conditions came through, because it's got greater than a 20% lean. The other pieces to it are it's very damaging to, we're not really able to grow a lot of grass underneath of that particular tree. It is the home of Camp T when they're at the beach. It's also the place where most people go to picnic. It's one of our only grassy areas that we have, and the grass just doesn't grow there because of the abundance of pine cones and pine needles and such. So to walk you through kind of where we've been in this process to do due diligence, the very first thing you'll see here, one of the arborists who came out and took a look at the tree, it's his recommendation, and I'll just read this out so everybody can kind of hear it. So to whom it may concern, I'm submitting a risk assessment for the pitch pine at 20 Town Road, Littleton, as requested by the Conservation Commission. The Littleton Park Rec and Community Education is seeking the removal of the tree to reduce the risk at the public beach. The pitch pine is located in the lawn area in front of the Littleton Parks Recreation Building at Long Lake Beach. The tree is leaning over a main sidewalk leading to the beach and the boat ramp. The area within 55 feet of the tree is used for parking, storage, public access, and beach and picnic area. The main concern is the lean of the tree. The tree is leaning at approximately 20 degrees over the walkway and has been damaged at its base. A trunk flare is buried and the bark of the tree at the soil line is falling off, exposing a dead portion of the trunk. According to Dr. Kim Coder, University of Georgia, trees that lean 15 to 20 degrees should be considered for removal. And as lean angle passes 20 degrees, structures failure risk are compounded geometrically. These recommendations do not take considerations such as complications such as cut, damage, decay of the roots, different types of soil, impact of construction damage, and fill. All of these things can greatly affect the likelihood of failure. In addition, if the lean of the tree is progressive, the tree should be removed immediately as failure is imminent. It is my opinion that the pitch pine should be removed and replaced with a tree that will contribute positively to the beachfront and the canopy of Littleton in the future. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me. And that was from Jay Webster of Marquee Tree Service. Last night, if you flip through, you'll see a full report. If anybody would like to have access to this report or take a look at it, you can definitely call the office and we can provide that to you as well. There are pictures here pointing out the exact location of the tree at the busiest time of year with beachgoers, parking, and everything else we have here. There's one picture that was taken, it was about a week ago, of the tree kind of just there by itself when we were out there. That really kind of shows the lean that it has. Additional pictures of the rot at the base of the tree, as indicated by the red arrows, and then once again the abundance of pine cones that we kind of, are constantly cleaning up and making sure that are ready for the campers and the other guests of the beach when they're passing through and coming down. I did attend the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting last night and had shared some of this data with them as well. We have been in constant communication with Steve Witten, who's the tree warden for the town of Littleton, and Amy herself. So as far as going to the Littleton Conservation Commission last night, they provided us with this letter dated March 10th, 2020. Tree removal at Long Lake Beach. Dear Mr. Mahowski, thank you for coming to the Conservation Commission last night to discuss the removal of the Scotch pine at the town beach. As you discussed, the Commission concurs that this is a single hazard tree. The tree removal is approved with the minor project approval policy of 12/20/2018 for the removal of hazardous trees with the following conditions. So 3 to 4 replacement trees will be planted in the Dame general vicinity. Coordinate with the Conservation Commission agent with regard to the species to be replanted. Native species are preferred. Please let me know if you have an idea for the schedule of removal. If you have any questions, please contact me at 978-540-2428. Sincerely, Amy Green, Conservation Coordinator. Flipping to the next page, as you can see, in doing due diligence and the conversations that we've had, this email is dated February 26, 2020, with an email attached to it dated February 25th, 2020. These emails are between myself, Steve from the Highway Department, who is the tree warden, and Connor Reardon, who works for LELWD. So the general conversation is that the LELWD has the shade tree program, and it was a request for 3 to 4 trees to be requested in that shade tree program order so that we can replace this tree that we would be removing. Ideally, we want to have some sort of large tree that's going to provide a nice shade to the area, and then some additional trees that are smaller, tighter, but still have leaves and possibly even flower at certain times to create shade and just enhance the, I know one thing that they were interested in was anything that helps with the pollinators. We did, kind of give a little pushback on that just with the proximity to the bathhouse, the number of children, the allergy concerns with bees. So we would hopefully tend to lean to more of a maple tree or something of that nature to replace there. And then last but not least, just for your review, we have the quote from Marquee Tree Service, a quote from Community Tree Service, which I am going to have to tell you guys that you cannot consider because they will not quote at prevailing wage. This does have to be a prevailing wage job, and they don't want to do the paperwork involved with that.
That explains why it's so much cheaper.
Correct. Mez Tree Service. And then the last one was by, who was this? Sorry.
High quality landscaping.
It was New England Tree Masters. The last thing that you'll find here is a letter that I drafted that can be changed however you see it, that I'm going to ask that Commissioner Prue sign, but this is a letter to the direct abutters that I wanted to get mailed out as soon as tomorrow, giving a week's time before we actually go ahead and go through with the process in case there are any concerns or any public input that any butter within the 300-foot perimeter. So that would basically cover from the Donahue's house over to the Flannery's house.
How many houses is that?
Generally, when we do it, I think it's 16. It covers all the houses on Town Road, the Donahue's house on Lake Shore, and then the Flannery's, and there's 2 other houses, one at the back of the boat ramp and the gentleman across the street from the boat ramp,
Yeah.
Okay.
which I don't recall the last names of those 2 houses.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to send that letter. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. That looks like that tree can come down at any point. So I don't really have any questions or concerns. Still does look like we have one estimate that's a few $100s less than the others. So I don't know if that's as much of a no-brainer as it seems, but I don't. Other than that, I don't really have any concerns.
Did Marquee charge you to come out and do this assessment?
They did not. That's the assessment that comes with their package.
Okay.
Yep.
I do have a question. 3 to 4 trees.
Yep.
This looks like a tight space. And one of your concerns is
Yeah, so if you, the reality of where this tree, so there's about a 20 by 20 section. I don't know if everybody's really familiar with Long Lake, but when you're walking towards the boat ramp, there's about a 20 by 20 section of grass that is in front of where the pine tree currently stands. It's split up by another pathway that runs down to the sand. So we would look to put a larger tree there and then 2 smaller trees somewhere in the corners of the area here. We met with Cataldo Landscaping on Monday at 11 o'clock, and Jennifer from Cataldo is going to do some conceptual artwork as well as some recommendation on some plantings, because we're also going to do some grasses and the planters in front of the bathhouse to meet some of the requirements that the Conservation Commission was looking to do. So once we have all of that formally put together, I'll present that to you, and obviously whatever the cost would be, but some of that cost was factored into our CPC request, knowing that this was something that we wanted to do to make the area more beneficial to everybody who uses it.
And one of the concerns I have is this is really close to, I'm sure this whole area is sandy. Pine does pretty fairly well, sandy. I'm not so sure about maples.
So we have a red maple that we actually planted here my first summer that we were here,
Yeah.
and it's doing very, very well. There's also one on this side of the beach. It's actually not in this picture, but there's one by this rock here
Okay.
that was planted a couple years ago, and that one does do pretty well as well.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm not the tree expert, so we're going to talk to conservation. We're going to talk to all the powers that be and figure out what we should actually plant. That's going to give us a good root support system as well, and help hold some of that sandy soil in place.
When you say grass, you mentioned grass as well, are you talking about sodding that area?
I'm not. I am not saying that. That hasn't been factored in anything, but I think in the very near future, in the next couple summers, not only do we need to look at either loaming and seeding in front of the bathhouse, but the area of the park that's behind the playground really needs a close look at. It's a lot of rock. There's not a lot of grass there. It gets a lot of runoff from the street and the hill. It's actually runs down into that basin that we had spoken about when we were talking about ADA compliance. So I do think that depending on what opportunities we have in the next couple of years, that loaming and seeding and doing some sort of helping that grass along would be something that's going to need to happen.
Okay. I guess my follow-up to that would be,
No, go ahead.
my follow-up to that would just be maintenance and how we take care of that. I can't imagine the highway's gonna be
Highway
happy
ma-
if we ask them to take care of it. So
So
in the
they
summertime, I think we
are.
certainly have staff.
So one of the things that went through for the budgeting season this year is that they actually did get a third full-time employee for parks. So,
I'm sure that's just what they want, is for us to start piling on to them now
well,
that they got
they
that.
asked. So I've had that conversation
Okay.
with Chris Stoddard and Steve Witten to talk about all of what the needs would be, and landscaping was on that list, so they are aware, and
Okay.
that's part of it.
That's
So
good.
a couple things while we're on the topic. So one of the things that's going to change this year is Highway will be grooming the beach 5 days a week. They did give us the opportunity that as long as it's not a piece of the equipment that they own, like we could get a 4-wheeler with net, and we can do it on Saturdays and Sundays if we wanted to. And then they do, just so that you're aware, they do the mowing and the weed whacking and the hedge trimming and all that already. So
Okay. All right.
that is part of the package that they provide for the summertime. But the nice thing is they're going to groom the beach 5 days a week now instead of 3.
Okay. Before I open it up, any other commissioners have anything?
No?
I just know that the trees you do get from the water department, they're tiny, just in case we're on like year 3, we got 2, and they're about this big now.
Okay. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Holly,
Would it be
can we just
possible-
get your name and
Oh,
address for the
I'm
record?
sorry. I'm Holly O'Donoghue from Colleen, and we're from 34 Beach Drive.
Thank you.
If anybody doesn't object, would it be possible to have the next minute be the discussion of alcohol at the beach?
Sure, we can move that.
Whenever.
Yep, after this, yeah, we can move
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Yep. Do you have a question?
Oh, just a quick one. So would there be any plans for like fall leaf removal if they're deciduous trees that you're planning to plant?
We actually haven't discussed any of that.
Because they can be a nuisance in the lake if they blow in the lake and in the neighborhood.
Yeah, we didn't have that conversation. I know Highway does do leaf removal in the fall. I don't know if that's something that they can take on, and I can't speak for that at this time. But I will express that onto Amy when we're talking about things that, obviously what we're gonna put back there.
Oh, my name's Tim Aker. too.
Thank you. I was gonna ask you.
Neighborhood,
All right,
bread and butter.
excellent, thank you. All right, so you need, what?
Yep, got it.
You needed a vote to approve the removal?
Vote to approve the removal, and if you guys would like to vote on the company you'd like to appoint the contract to, that would be helpful.
So should we do that, or do you, I feel like we should get references, so I think that would be,
You want references?
I don't think we should just hire a tree service without,
Okay.
if it was me and I talked to the guy and it was my home, I'd probably do it, but without calling references, but I think as a town
Yep.
entity, I think we should probably do our due diligence with that.
Yeah, I can do that.
We could maybe make the motion so that, Mez Tree Service is $275 less than the others, or less than, High Quality Landscape
New
Construction.
England Tree Masters.
Okay, I guess I have two names.
It has the DBA
DBA.
on it, yeah, so
Oh, okay,
it's-
all right.
Yeah, but they're not taking the chips.
No one's taking the chips.
All right, well, they're the only ones that said they weren't.
Is there a use for the chips down there? I mean, is there?
Not really. I'm sure we can come up with something, but I don't really expect it to be much more than 2 wheelbarrow fulls.
Throw out something on the Facebook page, maybe someone needs chips.
Yep.
Come and take them.
Mhm.
All right, so why don't we craft the motion such that we will look to hire Mez Tree Service as long as,
They pass reasonable.
Pending verification
yes.
of their
We were looking at the
references.
cheapest.
Yes, references is the word I was looking
Is
for.
it community tree service the cheapest?
So that was what I said, you
would
have
do
to
two,
ignore.
Mike. I would do one to approve the removal of
They
it,
were the
and
ones
then
who got
two
kind of
to,
prevailing wage quote.
yeah, make a suggestion on the company.
Okay, want to make that, Fred?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the removal of the tree at the beach.
Second.
All those in favor of removing the pitch pine tree at the beach?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then let's I'll entertain I'll entertain a motion to approve Mez Tree Service for the removal of the tree pending, good results on the references.
I move that we engage Mez Tree Service for removal of the tree at the beach pending positive references checked by department members.
Second. Go ahead.
Thank you, John.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
So just another real quick update on the beach stuff since we're on it. The catch basins at the boat ramp that we've been talking about getting dredged and redone for a couple of years now, that has been worked into the project, the highway project for when they do Meadowbrook. So those basins will be completely dredged and refilled, the swale that runs alongside of the boat ramp. So that'll all be taken care of when the Meadowbrook project comes down. Cataldo is pricing out to have the catch basins that are at the front of the parking lot dug out, re-loamed, re-mulched, and the succulents reinstalled. And the Clean Lakes Commission informed us via email the other day, myself and Amy Green, that there is some money available to do some restoration to what is the Wetlands Park, also known as the Frog Ponds, off of Lakeshore. So all of those projects that we've been working to try to figure out how to get done will be done to some level of completion up to 100% before we open on Memorial Day.
Okay. All right. So we're good there?
Good?
All right, so we had a motion made by a resident to move up item 7. We're just moving it up one spot. Any objection? All right, great. So item 7 is a request for approval to obtain alcohol licensing from the Board of Selectmen for special events and adult programming. I know, Tim, you're taking this on, so if you could give, so I wasn't at the last meeting, but I watched the meeting. Seems pretty straightforward to me what you're suggesting. But, you know, if you have more information, perhaps
Yeah.
that will be helpful. I think Mike was looking for more information. If you've had those meetings, discuss those, and then what the plan is for the summer.
Sure. So the plan for this summer, you know, first and foremost, last year we had our first alcohol event, which was Oktoberfest, which went very, very well. It, you know, generated some money for PRCE to put into the scholarship fund, which was the what we were hoping to kind of get out of the spirit of that event. One of the things that we had hoped to do last year was with the Adult Cornhole League to have the liquor license and stuff approved so that we could do this last year. This is kind of seeing that all the way to fruition and finish, but also to enhance and to allow more people to kind of put together a community event rather than it just be, you know, a couple people down there, well, 40 people down there playing cornhole. You know, the idea was kind of kicked around to create a community event, the 6 weeks, on Thursday nights that would have the Cornhole League. James and his team from the sub shop had expressed interest of doing like a pop-up kind of bar down there and getting some live music, some acoustic bands to come in, play some live beachy kind of music down there for the duration of the period from approximately 6 until 8:30. During those 6 weeks to bring in 6 different food trucks each week, so families could come down and have dinner. If you were of age, you could go inside the fenced-in area and have a drink along with the members of the Cornhole League. At 8 o'clock, shut down service, have a campfire with s'mores that were available for purchase from the Snack Shack, and then show a movie on the inflatable movie screen that we had to wind down the night and to kind of cap off that the rest of the evening for us. So that was, you know, what our intention was with trying to create the event. In the last time since our discussion, I forwarded on the information from the Attorney General and the licensing laws that we had approved last year for the town, as well as spoke to Sergeant Boussier about our intentions for doing these special events. You know, we did get accolades once again for Oktoberfest and got the green light for that. And, you know, as far as the beach thing, you know, if we did it the same way that we did Oktoberfest and had a defined area, they didn't see any issues as far as allowing it to happen. They did want to put an officer down there, which, you know, if we don't have to deal with the policing of it and everything else, I absolutely love that idea. And then the other piece to that was the thought was to consolidate some stuff. We did a third Thursday down at the beach last year because we got rained out for the first 2. And it was a really cool event. So we were thinking about doing June, taking third Thursday down there again on June 18th and doing that as like a soft opening, a soft run of this, and just kind of having everything going on, see how it goes, and then that essentially gives us about 3 weeks, so we can either pull the plug and find a new place for cornhole to go, if they so choose to do that, or, you know, we can all sit down in a room and say, you know, that went really well, and, you know, a couple best practices that we should look at doing. You know, the why, I think, is what everybody's looking for, is, you know, we got a lot of positive feedback at Oktoberfest. There were a lot of people who were like, oh, this is great, you know, to be able just to come out in one of the parks and have a beer and have food and kind of hang out, you know, with my friends and my neighbors in a setting that I necessarily wouldn't be able to do. The other piece is, you know, as we're going to talk about in the director's report, there, you know, is always a need to come up with some creative solutions for raising additional revenue in this department. And the sub shop is very, very generous with the give backs that they do with some of this stuff and the donations that they make. So that would be another opportunity for this board to look at. You know, it's not going to be thousands and thousands of dollars, but every little bit helps.
So how does that work? If we, let's just say this went through and they came down, they were serving alcohol, say they made $3,000 in a night, pulling that out of the air, but Do we get any of that, or is it on them to then donate to us what they see fit? What arrangement do we have?
So we do not have an arrangement yet, but, you know, it was basically as kind of like just a in-passing conversation. It was like, you know, we'll do $1 a beer or $1 a wine back to the Park and Rec. That's something that's way down the road.
Right.
We're not going to make those agreements.
But in the
before we know
past,
that-
we've partnered with them, right?
Correct.
and
That
have
was
we
at
had it?
Oktoberfest.
Right. Have we had any formal arrangement like that as far as we get $1 a beer, or is it?
What was the arrangement at Oktoberfest?
So Oktoberfest, the arrangement was that they were going to give us anything, I think it was anything over profit. What did we end up? We ended up with just under $1,000 check from them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they did a decent give back for that. Oktoberfest, we didn't come up with an arrangement. We kind of did it on the honor system because we absolutely had no idea how many people were going to show up. And, you know, as far as for them to make that type of commitment, I mean, they bought thousands of dollars of food and alcohol and everything else to kind of front that and make sure it happened. So we did not have a formal arrangement for that.
They're good
We will
community.
next year.
Correct.
They're good community partners, though, we
Yes,
know that, so
very much
I'm not
so.
worried about it, I was just curious. The other question, more of a clarification, just so it's not confusing, you said 6 food trucks, but that's 1 a week, correct, that you're proposing, right, not 6?
So
We don't
6
have space
unique,
for that.
yes,
Right,
so
well-
1 per week, so that, you know, the thought is, you know, I reached out to the Shuck Truck, which is basically like seafood and fried stuff. Hope is to get Doug from Rangers Barbecue, the Rolling Pizza Kitchen. They've been at a lot of our events lately, to get them down there 1 week and then try to find, you know, 3 or 4 other vendors to fill in those other days. Yeah, and then that's another thing, you know, Doug typically is pretty good at the end of the summer. He'll give us a donation to the scholarship fund for food that he's sold at the events and things like that. Other companies, we haven't really come up with any arrangement, because in the world of food trucks, generally in order to get them to show up, you have to promise them a certain amount of money, and if you don't, you're on the hook for it. So, you know, most of the time, we're just grateful that people want to show up and take the risk to, you know, that they're going to make enough money to cover
Mhm.
their bills for being there that night. You know, and so far, it's worked out very, very well with having the food trucks at Third Thursday.
Okay. I had a couple more, but I can't remember them. Mike, were your liability questions cleared up with the emails?
Well, let me ask a couple of questions. Will this overlap with the hours of operation of the, if you have something like this at the beach, this
So,
club?
that's a decision that, you know, honestly, you guys, being a policy board, we'd have to look at the hours of operation. So right now, the hours as voted, our lifeguards are on duty till 5:30, and the snack shack is open till 7. Ideally, you know, I would hope that we would keep the snack shack open for popcorn and s'mores, you know, until at least 30 minutes before the end of the movie, for anybody who needs any type of refreshments or anything like that. From a swimming standpoint, you know, if we decided that we wanted to have lifeguards on duty a little bit later, that could be something that you could, you know, say on these days, we want to keep the lifeguards till the start of the movie. At this point, we're just kind of assuming that it'll be, lifeguards will still go off duty at the 5:30 time that it always was. They'll pick up the trash, they'll do all the closing procedures, and keep 2 people on board to run the snack shack and set up and break down the movie and lock the bathrooms at 10 o'clock.
And people could still swim, it would just be at your own risk.
Yeah, we'd still make the closing
As it is
announcement, the
every
signs
night.
would still go up. The one thing that I think that we would have to enforce is, you know, once it does get dark, you know, because that park is
Yeah.
dawn to dusk, and we
Yeah.
have a lot of people who do swim in there after dusk. So having a presence at the beach, I think there would have to be a hard no swimming after dusk policy
Yep.
that we would have to enforce, just being there and present.
Yeah, I agree with that.
At other times, it's just the police responsibility to enforce that.
Yeah.
So I know,
yeah, go ahead.
so I know that, yeah, Oktoberfest was really well attended. What were the numbers that we had there?
Between 1,500 and 2,000 throughout the duration of the event.
That was huge. Are you concerned at all about parking?
So parking's always a concern at Long Lake, and really what we ask is anybody who's attending the events at Long Lake Beach, just being a good neighbor to leave, you know, if there is a big event at Long Lake Beach, to leave the parking that is accessible to, elderly and handicapped patrons. The other parking, we ask everybody that if we're gonna do something down there, that they park at Sugar Lane and walk the 2 or 3 blocks over. A couple times we've done events down there, we've had police there to help cross Goldsmith at the crosswalk there at the school, so we have paid for somebody to be there. The thought process would be is, if we did go through with this alcohol policy and had the officer there for 2 hours, because we're paying them for 4, then they would go up and they would be that person to help at the crosswalk. Because obviously if we're ending that at 8:30, then, it's getting dark, whether people are walking to the beach for the movie or from the beach after the movie, who have parked at Shaker Lane will have that resource available to, help do that. Because either way, if we're getting an officer, we're paying for 4 hours.
Yep. Okay. Anything else, Mike?
I'm just wondering if we had considered, would a better location be Fay Park, with the parking that you have at King Street?
Well, I think,
There's less parking up there.
Less
Is
parking
there?
on King Street.
Yeah.
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 And there's not access to a big parking lot like Sugar Lane.
Okay.
so I remembered one of my questions was, is there any, I know we're gonna piggyback the June 3rd Thursday, but what about the other 3rd Thursdays? We kind of be taken away from that event, wouldn't we?
I don't necessarily know that we'd be taking away from it. There's really no way to know. I think that, if you're going to go to the beach and I don't know, I think it could take a little away, but I think it's also 2 very different events and 2 different draws, but I can't say for sure.
How about your bandwidth? You're gonna be running, I mean, you obviously have help, but
Right.
you take on 3rd Thursday.
Yep.
You're gonna be taking this on. You gonna have the bandwidth?
So, as a park commissioner and as somebody who's, helping out with the adult sports league still, John is down there, who's very well versed in stuff. We also have the aquatics director, we have the head lifeguard. Staffing wise, I think the expectation would probably be for July and August at least. Well, it would affect July, not August, because we'd be done before the August 3rd Thursday one, to make that manageable.
Well, I would just say John used to have to be down there.
Right.
He doesn't have to be down there anymore.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I have,
Or Alicia, she's down there too.
hello.
yeah, no, I know,
She
well,
lives
I
right
mean,
around the corner.
yes, I'm
I
aware.
literally can walk there.
Okay.
I think the combined 3rd Thursday and the cornhole night at Fay, with all that, with the liquor license personally,
Yep.
is a good idea.
What, you want to put it?
Just the one
at
Thursday
Facebook?
at Fay Park combined, with 3rd Thursday.
So that June one?
The July one, the July 3rd
June
Thursday.
18th.
June was the one we were gonna
June.
combine.
I'm talking about combining everything at Fay Park that night.
For all of the 3rd Thursdays.
Everything that you're gonna, just the one 3rd Thursday in July. Combine the cornhole league at Fay Park with the liquor license,
Yep,
fenced off area for that.
yep.
Have everybody in one spot. To me, I think that would be the ideal thing for that one Thursday. The other
Okay.
5 at
The other 5 do at the lake.
Yeah, I mean, it's your discretion on what you want to do with that, but I saw we did that one time and it worked out kind of nice.
Yeah. It's whatever everybody wants. I'm here to serve at everybody's leisure, so I really don't mind.
Well,
Whatever works best, whatever the board wants to see, whatever the community wants to see, that's what we're here to do.
okay. Sean? Anything else?
No.
Fred?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So we'll take input from some of the residents who are here, I assume, for this. The one thing I want to mention is that we are not the approving body of the permit. So we don't approve the alcohol permit. That goes to the Board of Selectmen. So what we're doing here tonight is discussing this event and then whether or not to allow our park to be used, and then to go and ask the Board of Selectmen for that permit for the Littleton Sub Shop to operate at the beach or another park. I just want to make sure that we're aware of the process. So if we are to approve this and you are against it, I would encourage you to go to the Board of Selectmen and make your concerns known. But I just want to make sure that we're clear on the process on how it moves forward now. So with that being said, any comments?
just in many years past, the Board of Selectmen voted, and it says no alcohol at the beach. And the beach is for families to enjoy. There's so many children there. There's the swimming and the kayaking and sailing, and I just don't feel that alcohol during the summer is a good mix at that setting. I understand Oktoberfest. Children aren't there during October. They're there during the summer, and that's great. But I just feel now they're going to be exposed to this type of activity, and I just feel this day and age, it's really important not to involve alcohol at that setting. I feel there's people that do, on their own discretion, have it responsibly, and that's fine. But then there are quite a few that will be irresponsible, and there's going to be some concerns. It's just inevitable. And I mean, I'm sure you've done your due diligence, but I'd just like to see it remain like Walden Pond, no alcohol. I don't know why it has to change. I mean, you can have fun with cornhole tournaments and adult leagues without alcohol. It's just all of a sudden seems to be needed in the summer activity now.
Okay, Alicia.
I just wanted to clarify, so I totally understand your point. The decision on alcohol being allowed in the parks has always been with the Park Commission. So the bylaw that you're talking about was just town in general. So that did go to the town annual meeting last year and was changed as far as the bylaw is concerned. So the process that Mike was talking about, that's a new process for essentially all the boards and commissions that are I guess responsible for any facility use space. So for example, if somebody wanted to have an event at the school, they would have to go to the school committee and get approval from them to go to request a one-day liquor license to use for that event in the school. So I just wanted to clarify.
So I think, if I can, just a couple points to that. You know, definitely looking at both sides of what you said and just some of the requests that were made last year by some of the people who not only played in the Cornhole League, but some of the people that we interacted with who did bring their own stuff to the beach. You know, there will be a separation, you know, as far as the side of the beach that we consider, you know, the residence side of the beach. That's just a delineation for when Camp T is there. You know, there will be a confined space. Right now, the idea of that space is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of where the sailing tent is, up into where the Cornhole League is actually playing. I don't have an answer for that, but it will be fenced off. It's going to be an area where you have to be 21 plus to be inside. And like I said, I definitely understand your concerns, Holly, and hear them as well. But just for everybody's knowledge, it will be kind of a contained spot. It won't just be where they can roam wherever they want to go. So it does give us a little more control than people just showing up with coolers as well.
Not kind of, it will be in control.
Where was
Correct.
where was the cornhole league? Where did they?
Where Camp T, go to the tree thing. Is your best picture. There.
While they're doing that, the other thing I'd add is that anyone we hire to provide the service has to be tip certified. You know, so they're trained in identifying people who have consumed too much. They're, you know, not going to be overserved, ideally. We will have a police officer there. You know, when I heard about this, you know, in my mind, there would be, I wouldn't even consider this without hiring a police officer to be down there. For the concerns that I've heard before from residents and just in general, I think it's the right thing to do if we go through with this. So we will have people down there to stop it from getting out of control or people from over drinking. Just 1 second. Are you all set with your location?
Yep.
Okay.
My name is Jacqueline Lucas. I live on Fletcher Lane, and my question is something kind of completely different. So last year, we only had this one time,
Mhm.
and it was, you said, 1,000 to 1,500 people?
So this is a complete, to be clear, there's two very different events that
No,
we're
I
talking
understand
about, yeah.
that, but I'm just saying, so this year, you want to make it the 6 times. Is it 6 or plus the 3 Thursdays?
So they're not, so they're different things. So what we are trying to do is, Oktoberfest is one thing.
I just mean, how many events are you trying to do?
So it'll be 6 total at the beach,
Thursday.
5 or 6. Well, if we move one to,
Potential.
if we move one to
5 or
Fay
6,
Park,
yeah.
5 or 6 at the beach, which would be more of the food truck, the live music, and, you know, the events that we have done at the beach have been under 200 people in the 3 years that we've done it. We did 2 kickoff to summer parties last year. We combined the kickoff to summer party with a third Thursday, and then the cornhole league that we ran last year had 40 to 50 participants a week. The third Thursdays that we host get anywhere from 200 to, I would say, August is the most popular. Probably has close to 1,000 once we have the bounce castles and the water slides and everything else there. The Oktoberfest event, you know, it had the vendors, it had the bounce houses, it had the mechanical bull. There was a lot of other things that drew people to that aren't going to be at necessarily the beach setting. And the other thing at the beach setting is this is going to be a 2-hour event. There's going to be, you know, food offered. You know, just really the interest was to get people out. We were looking at Thursday night for the people who, you know, might travel on Fridays, so it still gives them the opportunity to, you know, go down there, meet up, have a night off from cooking, and they could just kind of stop and hang out and just create this completely different, separate event from any of those things.
Right, so my point is that we're looking to bring more and more people into an area that's extremely congested. And the biggest thing that I see would be a problem is how are you going to get rid of all the septic? We already have an issue down there.
So
We have a
it's
tight
a
tank
tight
down
tank,
there.
right?
And they're already complaining about the cost of how much it costs to empty it and all this kind of stuff. So
Right there, that's us, and, you know, any funds that are raised through, you know, doing something like this, this is one of the costs that we're trying to mitigate and.
it
you know,
is a
do
big
some stuff.
problem though
Yep.
down there.
100%, you are correct.
And bringing in more and more people that are drinking and eating, you're just exacerbating that problem.
I think for this event, I mean, we could always consider bringing in porta potties.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Does it make sense to scale it a little smaller, you know? Maybe try 1 or 2 events, see how it goes this summer.
Well, that's
Not
the-
do 6, not commit to 6.
That's the ultimate reason that we're creating this one going on in June, is so that we can kind of give it a, like Tim said, a soft opening, see how it goes, if we need to amend or make any changes, or just say like, we're not gonna do it, like that's the time where we still have plenty of time to make those amendments. So that was the reason for that one addition to the one in June.
well, what's the lead time for you having to coordinate the food truck?
They just moved to a different location, that's fine.
Well, so that's not necessarily true, because if we have one at Fay Park and we're doing one down at the beach, that would, you know, lead time wise, I mean, probably in the next month I'll start setting a lot of this stuff up.
So I guess my question is, if we do the June, and we find, and we find that it's not gonna work, are we gonna be on the hook for food trucks that we've hired to come in,
So,
potentially not July if we move it to Fay Park, but August? I don't know how far in advance you need to commit to those food trucks, or to any other thing that I'm not thinking of.
so I think the bigger question is, you know, are we talking about the people coming for the alcohol, or are we talking about people coming for the food trucks? Because one thing that's always been asked of us is that to provide more food options at the beach, especially for dinner. So that was really the.
Yeah, and I'm not,
addition
I'm simply saying, if we deem it not to be feasible, will we be on the hook for those future food trucks?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Normally, no, we don't sign a contract with anybody to do that.
Okay.
We just say, hey, can you show up? Are you willing to do this event? I mean, we can be honest and, you know, obviously tell them like, hey, we might not do this, but, you know.
They might not commit.
Yeah, I don't know if people would necessarily commit to that.
Do we have any other questions, comments?
Where would the food trucks be placed?
Somewhere over in the vicinity of, kind of where the snack shack currently is, because that snack shack's going away. Or down, closest to like where the berm is in front of the bathhouse. Kind of consolidate everything over in that area.
The current snack shack is going away
Current snack shack is going away.
this year.
Yes. It's being replaced by a new one that's gonna go, over by the boat ramp.
And you're gonna stay with the tight tank.
Yep.
Mhm.
We have to. right now, the town of Littleton has no capacity to upgrade the sewer or the septic down there. Light and Water just took over the sewer project. They're looking at a couple different options, including going back and revisiting some of the options that we looked at previously to get answers for us. But currently there is no solution down there for being able to get off that tight tank. So it is what it is for right now, unfortunately. I think the bigger thing is everywhere down at Long Lake, not just Long Lake Beach, needs to kind of look at a sewer
Right,
option
it's a
in the
problem
near
down
future.
there,
Because,
yeah.
the reality is one really big storm is, we're covered, we have a tight tank, but it's gonna put a lot of people out of business if,
Yeah.
the water table goes up down there.
Yeah, every year you have an issue with the beaches closed at some point.
So last year, I will say this, last year we had an issue and it was a false test, and other than that, our beach is one of the only ones that has not been closed for bacteria. We did have a 24-hour closure last year, that was a false test, and that was a mistake by the person collecting the sample.
But generally, in previous years, it's always closed at least some
I've been
period.
here
Yeah,
for
but the last
5
couple of
years.
years,
My
it's
tenure-
and same
my
thing.
tenure
Any
here-
closures that we've had, it's been a testing mistake done by,
In my tenure here, since I started in 2017, we have not closed the beach except for that one day last year, and it was a testing error by the Board of Health.
You have something?
Oh, just a comment that, I thought it was interesting that you had like the single event last year, Oktoberfest, that seems appropriate. Maybe in keeping in line with the spirit of a special event, maybe once a month seems appropriate. But when I start to hear like every Thursday or something, the alarm bells go off in my head.
6 Thursdays.
Right, it sounds
Just
like it's gonna
6.
be-
6, okay, but even 6. But sometime, maybe a monthly affair or something to keep it special, I think would be more amenable to the neighborhood.
Okay.
I think you're envisioning, I think the folks here are envisioning mass amounts of people coming, descending upon this. And that's not, it's not, I don't foresee that happening personally as someone that's been involved in, Park and Rec and worked for Park and Rec before I came be on the board. But I don't think you're gonna see 1,000 people, or you're gonna see
But now
50 to
you're
100.
presenting alcohol, so that changes things.
I think it will change it, but I don't think it's gonna change it to this mass amount of people that you think.
And that's
That's
not
my personal
something,
opinion.
I think having, trying it out in June and seeing how it goes, and then making a decision based on that.
Well, I think that process, though, makes it difficult to plan. I think plan on what we plan, and then evaluate it after the first event and go from there. But if we say, well, let's not make future plans until we have the event take place, then we can't do anything further.
I think that
because
if,
if we go through the process of getting the permits, you can always say, we're just not gonna do it.
And
But
by we, just to be clear to everybody out there in TV land, we are not requesting a liquor license. The sub shop
Correct.
is requesting a
Yes.
liquor license, and we are granting permission for them to be at said property. And
Right.
anyone in town has this right. So if it's a wedding, if it's anybody else who wants to do it, the Rotary, is doing the same thing down for the NEPA building. So just to clarify that for everybody, in case you're kind of wondering, well, why is Park and Rec? We're just granting permission for the use of the land. The liquor license is pulled by somebody else. It's on, their liability, on their servers, everything else. So I just
So
wanted to make
that's-
sure everyone was clear on that.
That's a point to emphasize, is that they have the liability.
yeah,
We do not, the town does not. They have their policy. You're shaking your head sideways. Clarify for the people at home, because I know that is, a concern for people.
Right, they do take on the liability and responsibility because they are the ones who are serving.
Right.
Is there zero liability? I mean.
Well,
there's
just
never
like in
zero
anything,
liability.
anything else the town does,
Correct.
there's not,
Yep.
something could happen.
So,
Um,
I think in general, like, people just don't want to see like the tiki bar like at Neshoba down there.
You're not gonna see
You
that.
know what I mean?
but
Yeah.
that's also not what we're, that's not the spirit of what it is.
Right, well,
Spirit
that's
is
why
to
I think
have-
we were interested to come and see what you're talking about.
It's to have controlled service to the people who are choosing to do it at a controlled time that we can shut off whenever we deem is necessary in an area that is a designated area, and and look at doing something that has been a request of, the department prior to Oktoberfest, and even more so after Oktoberfest, to allow some more opportunities to be able to do things like this.
So is this predominantly for, I mean, part of what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, we talk about, dovetailing it with food trucks and a movie as well, so bringing families down there. But it's also, we're talking about cornhole, so are we,
Doesn't seem to mix.
well, no, are all 6 weeks gonna be, where we're gonna have a movie down there? Or is this predominantly being driven by the Cornhole League?
So the Cornhole League was something that we were trying to have down there.
Yep.
This is just another opportunity to give a different part of the patrons, the families, the kids, who, maybe they don't necessarily make it to the beach, or, they just, to have a place to have a movie. Fay Park is a nightmare to have a movie in because the mosquitoes are so bad.
Yeah.
Every time we've done it there, it's like we get through like the intro credits and people are getting up and running out of the park. Fortunately, one of the things that the lake affords us is the flow of air, and the bug problem isn't as bad down there most of the time. So that was the real thought process between, well, what if we did this? What if we put the movie down there? Families can come down, they can get something to eat. If they're already there swimming, they can, hang out for a little longer, have the campfire, have the movie down there.
So
and
so all 6 weeks, we're thinking about doing something like that?
Correct.
A movie and a campfire?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't see people that are going to be inclined to go to the tiki bar to, to party, to be going down to Long Lake for 2 hours when it's a family event. I just don't think it's a draw for that demographic. I think the kids, the 20-something-year-old kids aren't going to say, hey, let's go to Long Lake for an hour and have some drinks and then head to the tiki bar. It's. I don't think it's going to be a draw for that.
It's not set up for it.
Yeah, I don't think that you're going to see the 20-something crowd going down there, getting rowdy and wanting to have, a big to-do like over at another establishment. It's just, I don't think it's a draw for that demographic, personally.
And when did you say about the music was going to be there?
Till from 6 to 8 is our thought.
On which ones, though?
Same night, Thursday night.
So, like when the cornhole is there,
Correct.
and then afterwards would be the movie.
Correct. Yep. Yep. So, instead of making everything disjunct and making on different nights of the week and, maybe make it where you have to pick, what are you gonna do? If everything's at one-stop shopping, if we can schedule people to be in one place, if we can tell the food vendors and everybody else, hey, this is what we're expecting, rather than the competition that we had pointed out with Third Thursday before. The idea is just to kind of make it a nice community event for the people who want to be there. And, obviously, we have thought about, our crowd's going to show up, which is why I mentioned possibly doing June as a soft opening and seeing what we get. But yeah, like I said, we can go however you guys want to go on this. It's, at the end of the day, if, we can do more and it's more work for the department and the staff, and, it gives more opportunity for the community, or if it's not something that we want to do, it's only a loss to the people who want it.
So, I'm wondering, let's say we did it, let's say we did this concept 3 Thursdays out of, in keeping with, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Tim Ahern.
Tim's suggestion of keeping it a special event, doing it monthly. That's the way I'm leaning, but I wonder what that does to the Cornhole League, and you would know better than anyone, you ran it last year. Are those guys are you gonna have to move it those Thursdays? Are they gonna be, would we not see people commit to Cornhole League if we don't have, I mean, I know, I throw bags and I never throw it without a beer in my hand, so, like, I get it. That's part of it.
Is the answer to your question, do we still do does James and his team still run that with the Cornhole League 3 times and, do that, the same setup without everything else, and then the other 3 times we have everything else? I mean, because that also consolidates down to a group of 40 to 50 people.
Well, in the league, right? But then anybody can still come to the park. So what I'm thinking is that for the first year of trying this, in the interest of the neighborhood, I would like to see us try it 3 times, prove that we're going to be good shepherds of that neighborhood, of the park. Afterwards, it's going to be clean. The neighborhood isn't going to have any ill effect. You know, I assume there will be some people who will still be against it, us even running an event down there at night. But if we can prove that after the event, there is no ill effect on the neighborhood, I think that would go a long way towards potentially next year adding maybe 3 more, maybe 1 more. Who knows? I wouldn't want to commit to that, but I think it would go a long way to prove if we took this first year, prove that we can do it in a good way for the neighborhood. I've heard from I've mentioned this to people, and they're pretty excited about it. They think it's a great idea. So that's the way I'm leaning. So I don't know.
I would lean that way too.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think it will deter people from signing up. We've played it. The first year we did it in winter, and it was at high school, and we couldn't have anything.
Yeah.
10 people would be at teams.
Could you do it? Well, I don't know.
So I think the answer to what you were saying is that we do June 3rd Thursday at Bay Park. We can just kind of run that as the normal event. We have food trucks and live music there anyway. We figure out, with Aaliyah and the Cornhole League, whoever's going to be involved in that, whether it's going to be John as the adult sports liaison or not, the 3 weeks that we want to have that there, and then we back into it, or, we do just the Cornhole League with the alcohol on the 3 weeks, and then we do the other 3 weeks where we have the food truck and the movie. So that's, really kind of however we want to move those pieces around.
Yeah. So I would say my preference would be to request the liquor license, or to approve of the sub shop requesting a liquor license from the Board of Selectmen for the 3 events that we want to have at the beach only.
Yep.
And on those 3 days, the Cornhole League can be there or they cannot be there, whatever they choose. If they want to piggyback on that event, that's great. But other than those 3 times, there would not be beer or wine available to the Cornhole League. Because I think, I understand that that's a draw to the Cornhole League, but if we only do it for the Cornhole, if we have the Cornhole League at the beach and we're still offering beer, it's going to be more than 40, 50 people down there, regardless if we have no other activities set up for anyone, and I'd probably be one of them, so, but I think in the interest of the neighborhood, I think it would be good to hold it to 3 events throughout the summer.
So you're thinking 1 each month, June,
Yeah,
July, August?
yeah, that's, if the dates work
I think
out.
if we're going to limit it to 3, that we should pick it either 2 in July and 1 in August, or 1 in July and 2 in August, and work it around the league rather than put 1 in June. Because June 18th, school wasn't out yet, and
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons that we didn't do the kickoff
And we may be in
summer
school
party.
till
was-
June 30th this
right,
year or
because
something.
school got pushed so far back, which is one of the reasons we axed the kickoff the summer party, because typically it's that last week in June.
So we can determine dates at a different time, right?
We can choose our dates whenever we want. Anytime up until, we have to have the Board of Selectmen meeting packet in.
Yeah, so just for,
When we
people
decide
here
to
and
go.
viewers, I think July and August in some form, 1 and 2, 2 and 1 is probably the better way to go. June sometimes can be a rain out.
And would you guys want to put everything in one, or do you want to offset the weeks? So do you want to do do you want to do those 3 weeks, do we want to do the food truck and the movie, or do we want to offset the weeks is what I'm asking?
No, I would say that
Everything at
hold the
once.
event as you've described tonight,
Yeah.
Okay.
those 3 times.
And then if you want to do the 3 movies after the Cornhole without the liquor license.
Yeah.
I think you should have the food truck there during Cornhole anyway. if, you know.
I agree.
Everybody thinks it's a good idea, I think, because it is a good idea. I've been to the beach, when you have to go somewhere to dinner. You know, it's nice to have food there when you don't want to leave and it's not a nice day.
Would
So I think it's a great idea to have. trucks there.
would that food truck be able to generate enough revenue with just cornhole?
Well, you have the
But the
beachgoers
thing,
too.
it wouldn't just, and that's why I'm asking what you want to do, because it's going to be its own draw, is what I'm saying.
A food truck?
Yes.
Yep.
If I was down there and knew a food truck was coming, I'd stick around and get dinner for the kids.
They're really good.
They're two completely different draws, is what I'm saying. You're going to get the people who come just for the fact that we are offering alcohol and who want to play in the cornhole league. You're going to get people who are just coming for the food truck, and you're going to get people who are just coming for the campfire and the movie. So that's why I'm asking the question the way I am is, you know, is the reality of the situation the fact that it's going to be a draw for the alcohol, or is it the bigger picture of you have 3 different draws that are going to bring people?
So, I think I would disagree with John then. I think I would, if you're gonna hold cornhole there with, aside from that event, it's cornhole. And, you know, in the interest of the neighborhood.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
if you're,
what I'm
like,
thinking-
I mean, in my head, when he said it, I'm like, food truck, that makes sense, you guys can eat, but if that's gonna bring in another 75 people, then that defeats what I'm trying to accomplish with my suggestion, which is,
So
only
what I would then propose is that we do the 3 sessions with sub shop providing alcohol, with cornhole and a food truck.
and movie.
I think we should have the food truck. I agree with you on that. And then we should do 3 sessions that are just food truck, campfire, and movie. I think,
Isn't
You're
that,
disagreeing with that.
isn't that 6 events?
Yeah, it is.
yes, but 3 of them don't have the alcohol. Or you wanted to only do 3 movies down there. That's what I'm saying, like.
Yeah,
when
so
you-
that, like, the event you described on the
Yeah.
onset of this conversation was sub shop down there serving beer and wine,
Mhm.
movie, snack shacks open for popcorn and s'mores, campfire, food truck.
Yep.
That's an event. My proposal is to have 3 of those
Yep.
throughout the summer. And then cornhole can do whatever cornhole wants to do. I mean, it would be great to have them down there when we do those,
Yep.
but if
Football
they,
can't do whatever they want to do. They learned that the hard way last year.
I'm referring to location.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
that's my proposal.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So before you guys make a vote, then I will just put the clarification of what we have on here to be voted. So,
Well, to be clear, that's just my proposal. I think Mike agrees,
Yep.
but, you know, the 3, you guys could have a, if you
Well,
guys want
I
to go
just-
6, you guys can
so
propose
I just
that.
wanted to clarify so that if there are discussions or wanted
Oh, I
people to
didn't know
make
if you were
changes,
trying to say
then
something.
they
Just-
can do.
No.
Okay.
So currently, what we had the 6 days, we brought that down to 3 days to be determined in July and August. So 3 days through July and August. The October 3rd date, which is the 2nd annual Oktoberfest at Fay Park. That's it.
Okay.
So,
I have a question for the people here, and I don't want to date anybody, but we used to do movies down at the beach. What sort of disruption did you see? Because I know that sort of petered off because we had rain dates and it was tough getting people to come and people are on vacation. What,
I don't recall any.
hmm?
I don't recall any issues.
Okay. But the crowds weren't much.
No. Certainly not like 1,000 people.
Right, right. It
seemed
was,
like family, you know, there were kids watching a movie and so there wasn't alcohol, you know, it didn't change the tone.
See, in my mind, and it may turn out that I'm completely wrong. In my mind, we're gonna get the same clientele down there. We're gonna get maybe a couple more, but it's still gonna be a family event, much like Oktoberfest was. You know, Oktoberfest was a family event that served alcohol. But it was very, I mean, it was awesome. And I'm envisioning a smaller, much smaller scale of that at the beach.
Less time,
Yeah,
you know, it's 2 hours, right?
so,
I mean, it's,
Erica, good morning, Fox Lane. I'm just wondering, how you know it will be smaller? So I understand that you're thinking it's gonna be smaller, but if you're offering, a food trucks and alcohol and cornhole and a movie, that seems like a pretty big draw. So, do you, maybe you limit the number of tickets you sell, or do something to ensure it's smaller? Or if you split it up into 2 different events, a movie night at the beach where there's no alcohol involved, and that is truly just a family event, right? And you're not gonna get, no one, there's not gonna be a bunch of people coming down to see, Smurfs at the beach if they're not there for a family event, right? The alcohol could draw other people, and that could, I don't know why you need that at a family event. So to me, they seem like 2 very separate things.
Most of those things overlapping. I mean, it's, the liquor shut down at 8, the movie's at like 8:30.
Correct.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
they're not overlapping. The movies, you can't start the movie till it gets dark, which is usually after
8:30 is the
8:30.
earliest we can start a movie.
The liquor
which
stops
is-
at 8.
Right.
You're not gonna have people,
It's
it's not at the same time. Like, I think people leave, and the kids and more family will come after.
And I also think to speak
For
to,
being a part of those, that's all, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
to speak to Erica's point though, I think, and what we talked about earlier, I think you have a first, we're just, so we can plan, we have the first one, see how it goes. If adjustments have to be made, because, and I can't say we know for certain how it's gonna play out.
Yeah.
I think we can
We make those
approve,
adjustments.
I think we can approve what we're asking for, and then if the first one's a total disaster, then
May I,
shut down after the fact.
may I just ask a question to Tim, because he's the one who brought it up?
Sure.
So if we went the other way, because I think this is kind of a little bit what you were saying. I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Erica.
Erica. And Tim had brought up the fact about doing something over the course of multiple weeks. Would it be more amenable to you, Tim, and for everybody else who's listening out there, if we go to the, back to the idea of, splitting it up where, it's alcohol, beer, wine, food truck, cornhole 1 week, and then we alternate that with a just, starting at 8:30, campfire and a movie the following week. Is that something that, if we drew that out over
Yeah,
that
that-
kind of process, would that
That
work?
doesn't really appeal to me, just
Okay.
because I live so close to it that it's like having a party in my house, in a way. I abut the
Okay.
beach. So the idea of like, once a month there's a party at the beach and it's something special, that, I can certainly understand that's of value to the community. But what you're all describing, it just sounds like it's such a regular thing that it's,
Yeah.
I think I'd find it a little oppressive. But, I will say, when you showed the Moana film, that was very cute, I thought. That was good. There was a good feeling in the crowd and everything. And you had those little tiki lights up on the beach. It was kind of festive. I thought that worked out well. But if it was like week after week, it's like,
Yeah.
this is my life now.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I'm not sure what the motion is.
What did we
That's
agree
why I
on?
clarified
Yeah.
earlier.
Uh,
I can clarify
So
again.
three events.
To be determined dates
Yeah.
in July and August. So, I guess I should say through July and August 2020.
All right, as she tries to figure that, I'm gonna throw this out there. If we're gonna do 3 events,
Hold on, are we approving the Oktoberfest today too?
Yes.
okay,
so
my
we-
thought would be, let's do 4. 2 movies, 2 cornhole nights, and get a feel. Because if you just do 1 movie night, you're not gonna get people are gonna go, oh, let's go. And then what you're gonna have is, you're not gonna get any feedback in terms of how well that went over. if we do one? You're gonna, people will go,
We're
they're not
doing
gonna
three.
say.
Yeah, we're not
Doing
proposing
three.
to do one.
Okay.
We're just gonna go full
Three of the
full and
exact-
do everything
Three-
all
all-
in.
The
all
exact
in.
same events.
All
We're
right.
going
All
all
right,
in.
Fred, clean out your ears.
You're good. No, I heard that, but then I
3 days
purposely tried to push it out of my head.
to be determined through July and
Like I said,
August
we'll-
2020.
Yeah.
And then the October 3rd date for the second annual Oktoberfest, which is in Bay Park.
After the first one, we can make, we can.
You
we
can
be-
always make adjustments,
and see.
always.
Make an assessment.
May I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
So the Fay Park will host the
It was like
Oktoberfest
the
this year
first
as
weekend,
opposed to
yeah.
Long Lake?
Oh, yeah,
Oktoberfest is
Oktober.
never gonna be at Long Lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was never, there, no, the bandwidth is not there for that, and the fact is that Bay Park is, if it's as popular or more popular than it was last year, we're gonna reach the
Yeah, I
bandwidth
think
for
Fay
that
Park
space
is a
as
wonderful
well.
venue. It's very open and.
That was never an intention.
We're putting all our requests of the Board of Selectmen for liquor licenses in one motion.
One package. So, Alicia, just to make things easier here,
Yeah.
I would say that you now fall into, third Thursday is gonna be on the 17th of July. So that would mean the 16th of July.
All right, we don't need dates though, right?
Well, I'm just
It
giving you.
would be
so
helpful if we
the
did.
So it's gonna be July 23rd. It's gonna be July 23rd, July 6th, and July 13th.
3 in July?
Well,
Or did you mean to
yeah.
say
August
August?
6th and August 13th.
Okay, so July 23rd,
Yep.
August 6th,
Yep.
and August 13th?
Yep.
Can we do August 20th or no?
That's third
Closed?
Thursday.
Oh, third Thursday.
That's the
And we're
big
getting
third Thursday.
closer
would be
to
done.
staff leaving,
Yeah.
I was just thinking we could separate them a little bit more.
yeah.
The only one I skipped was July 30th. That was the only date I skipped. And at the third Thursday in August, we typically do that movie in Fay Park. We have the water slides, we have a band, we have, that's been a really fun family event for the past 2 years, doing all that stuff.
So July 23rd, August 6th, August 13th at the beach, and then October 3rd for Bay Park.
Correct.
Now, why not, what are the dates again? Why not 9th, July 9th?
Why not July 9th? Because the Cornhole League is not starting.
That would be the first. Thursday after the 4th would be the first night.
Oh, that's the
Would be a bad
night.
idea to have it be the first night.
Well, yeah, but you might have, so you're either gonna get people who go on vacation on the front-loaded side of the 4th or the back-loaded side, so we start on the
Gotcha.
16th because of that.
We're starting the league on the 16th?
I thought that's what we put in, 16, 23, 30th,
Well, why we,
6, 13, 20.
I don't think we have to figure.
Yeah, this is why I don't want to put dates in it. I just want to make the
Well, no,
motion
that,
so we can
no,
get
'cause
going.
the reason with that was that then the Cornhole League can finish if we want at Fay Park on the final third Thursday like we did last year, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
All right, sorry, Mike.
That's it.
Can you spin your laptop so Fred can make the motion?
So if you can just do that. So it's done, so.
All right, so I move that we approve the request to allow the use of alcohol at the parks and
In August.
dates listed above, and to move
August
forward to
3rd.
apply for one-day liquor licenses from the Board of Selectmen.
That's it.
Need a second?
Second.
Kaz got it. Kaz.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I would encourage you, if things don't go well, from your perspective, please let Tim or Alicia know.
Yep.
Feel free to come to a meeting and let us know. We set the policy, just like we approve that. So it's the five of us' responsibility to tell Tim and Alicia what's working and what isn't. So please come back, let us know. You can email me, you can get that from Tim or Alicia. I'm happy to take the feedback if it's not working out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for getting to that article before the other.
You're welcome. Anytime, by the way, if anyone has something on the agenda they want to speak to, and it's way down at the end, ask us to move it, we'll be happy to. Thanks.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
As you guys both know, anytime, just come over to the beach.
All right, so, back to item 6, request for approval to amend Request for approval to amendment, see, it's not me. Request for approval to amend Schedule C1. Wage must increase to include the new minimum wage. The only change to the schedule is that grade 1, step 1 will increase to $12.75 from $12. This seems straightforward. Is
I
there
make a
any?
motion to approve.
Second.
Boom.
Done.
No
Any-
questions,
any-
comments, concerns.
Any
we don't have
further
any
discussion? Yeah, I don't think we have any choice.
No,
which
just
is
kind
nice.
of-
I've never,
Yeah.
let's savor this moment a little bit. Mike made a motion without any discussion.
Oh, ouch.
All right, so did we get a second on that?
Yeah, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful.
Wow.
All right.
I'll do it for 8 as well.
Yeah, let's go. Request to close the office at 2 PM on Thursday, March 26, 2020 for professional development.
So hold on, to
Oh.
clarify. No, at 2 PM. We will have one staff member that's gonna work from 9 to 2, but the rest of us will either be in New Hampshire for the American Camping Association Conference or the Massachusetts Parks and Recreation Conference. So,
Okay, so on March 26th, there will only be one person in the office until 2 PM.
correct,
After that, it will be closed.
correct. That's what we're asking,
Question,
yes.
why can't that one person stay till 4?
Because they are only budgeted for 5 hours.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I make a go ahead,
No,
Kaz.
please,
Oh,
I'd like you to
Kaz-
do it.
Kaz is up.
Make a motion to approve the closure of the office at 2 PM on Thursday, March 26, 2020 for professional development.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, item
I'm really
9,
in favor of that.
discussion and planning for damage from parking issues at 300 King Street, Castle in the Trees.
So one thing with this, so I just kind of want you to see what's been going on down there. My suggestion is that I work with the highway department and any other departments necessary to come up with a plan to present for next month. But perhaps now we can put up some snow fencing or something to keep people from, parking or going out of the areas of that parking lot. Because I don't want us to spend a ton of time because we are already at 9 o'clock and we still have some other important things to talk about. But the amount of damage that the parking lot on the outside of 300 King is sustaining is getting pretty astronomical.
This is due to people parking.
This is due to people, either parking improperly and not staying on the pavement, or B, making up their own parking spaces because there's not enough parking available at the location.
So this brings up my, is there a reason why we're not going to pursue the expanded parking at King Street?
Yes.
Revisit that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because at this point in time, we have no idea what's going to happen with the town hall space needs project. And we want to be able to be prepared to help out in that situation if, our department is going to be included in that space development. So financially, at this point in time, that is something that is a priority over fixing this parking lot right now.
Well, wasn't that CPC funding?
So we had
Is that what you're
asked,
asking for?
so yes and no. So what ends up happening, and this is not the way that the process is intended to go, and so our new financial director is working very hard to kind of change how we are going to be using capital in the future. But in the past, the way that we've kind of gone through the process is, I would do all these capital requests, we would get denied, and then go to CPC and ask for funds. And that's not really the way that it should work. They should be a bit separate. So at this point in time, we've gone through our capital requests. They're on that list. They should continue to be on that list. We're gonna have the issue where we're gonna have limited amounts of fund in CPC, right? So what we have right now, and Mike, you can verify this, what we have in there right now, we're not recuperating or filling those buckets to the capacity that we once did, because a lot of the funds that we got from either TIFs or whatever it was, those agreements have kind of gone away. So the amount of money that we put back into the CPC this past year has been very minimal, is that correct?
It is, but I'm just wondering, what are we saving it for?
I just said. So when right now we are doing a report to try to figure out the space needs for this town. Okay, so part of that, they are considering the space needs that our department needs. So if we are able to put some funding towards helping the creation of that, I would rather use those funds to deal with our space need problems than to fix a parking lot issue that we could just fix by coming up with, for
Do you think
the
we could
time
use
being.
CPC funds for,
That's my question.
yeah?
So we could, but at this point in time, and this is a question maybe you can have with Mitt, we're so close to having the warrant closed, is it worth the time and effort? Because I still have to go out and get quotes for all of these things, right? So for me to be able to meet the requirements to have a plan to come before Mitt for CPC, I don't feel comfortable that I'm gonna be able to get those numbers for him,
Well,
or for the committee, I
it
should
seems
say,
to-
not for him.
I mean, there's also fall town meeting too, where we could address this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and I would just say that this is our decision. If
It
we
is,
want to go after,
ultimately,
if
yep.
the five of us want to choose to expand that parking lot, we can choose to do that and try to get that money from CPC.
It seems.
I'm not saying that's the way I'd go, but I'm just making sure that we're all aware that this is our decision to make.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to just point out to Alicia's fact, the point that she made is like, one of the things that the board, that we asked all the time, but the board needs to advocate for, in my opinion, and from time to time this does happen, but beating that drum, this is a capital project. This is something that when it goes before the Board of Selectmen and FinCom and those things that we get turned down for every single year, this is a real need. This is something that I would say over 50% of the community at some point uses, and this is truly something that should be helped out from capital funding and not money that's being pulled out of the recreation bucket to fix another town problem that we have. Because one of the things that we unfortunately do is we create space and we don't create it appropriately. We don't plan parking right. We don't do these things. So, my ask would be the same as Alicia's, is that you guys help us advocate that this has to be capital, and for projects like this in the future, it really needs to come out capital, not out of our CPC funding.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just, the reality is that, capital is hard to come by, and, this, the curbing of a parking lot, as much as I agree that it is, it's disheveled and it's not it doesn't look good, but, the other priorities we have in town are, they're much, much higher. If I were a board of selectmen, I'd listen, but they wouldn't bat an eyelash at that, given what else this town has to pay for in the near future.
But just to be clear, CPC is the Community Preservation Commission, right? So the whole point of that is to be preserving spaces in the community. And again, this comes down to what's the difference between a capital project and what should be coming out of CPC. So in this, because this is basic maintenance of or extension of a parking lot, that is a town-owned property, that falls under capital, not under
I agree with you.
preservation.
So does having adequate space. That's also a capital,
I hear ya.
not a CPC thing.
Yeah.
What, Mike?
Having adequate space for our town personnel, that's capital, that's not CPC either.
Yep.
But I don't think we need to beat
That's
this.
fair. No,
drum
that's
anymore.
fair.
So what would you like?
So at this point in time, I just wanted to bring it to your acknowledgement. If you want to start having conversations with folks in the community about it, but I would like to be able to set up some time over this next month just to discuss with Highway to see if we can come up with some sort of either A, short-term solution plan, and then B, what would a long-term solution look like, you know, without having to do the parking lot extension. Because just because we do the parking lot extension doesn't mean that's the answer to our problems, right? We could be inviting more problems in by extending.
Well, I think that would go a long way to, mitigating it, right? If we have proper space, you're not gonna have people parking on the grass.
But we don't know for certain, right? It could bring in a lot more people and there could be a bigger problem.
So
Go ahead,
I was gonna say, short-term, cheaper solutions that we can look at right now
snow fencing.
is you can put up a snow fence.
Yep.
You could look at something that's a little more expensive and you could put up a 3-rail fence. You could look at taking some of this property that's already damaged and having Chris go out there and like they're doing over at Cloverdale, we could look at leveling some of it and using some of the regrade to create a couple more parking spots. Last statement on this is I did speak to Deputy Chief Patterson today in our meeting, and they're going to go ahead and tell their guy, I'm not forget his name, but they're going to post King Street, and they are going to start ticketing as soon as those posts are up for people who are parking on the sidewalk on King Street to access the park. I think in our due diligence, we should look at one of the fencing options or, most importantly, we can get some sort of temporary signs that say, no parking. It can be an A-frame, or a sign that encourages people to park behind the fire station or on Foster Street rather than park, because I think a lot of people who are coming from out of town, especially because that park is very heavily used by out-of-town residents, I think a lot of people just don't know where to park. So I think education on that piece could be something as well.
But that's the piece, I think it should be a combination of signage, because I don't want to get to a place, and, this is my opinion, so you guys can, disagree, and that's fine. I don't want to get to a place where there's just like a sign for every single statement that you want to make out there. Then it gets too confusing, people have to read all these different things, and they just stopped reading the signs.
No,
So,
but if you think a sign that says overflow parking at Fay Park or whatever.
right.
Would direct them in it.
In combination
Yeah.
with something that's going to block people from parking in that grass area, from making that choice, right? There's a fence there, so you can't,
Right.
should not go over the fence, right, and run it over.
How about, there's a lot of developing going on in town. Are there big boulders? Could somebody, is it just something like a physical barrier instead of a fence that's gonna need maintenance?
So we already did talk
Drop some
about
boulders. Springdale
boulders.
Farms cleaning out and back like
that's
it's nobody's business, and they got piles of rocks there.
So
Go
we
ahead.
did talk about boulders with the highway department, and they are not in favor of that because it actually increases the maintenance for the park staff, because instead of having to mow, now they have to get out and weed whack everything.
Which you're going to
Okay.
run into the same issue with the fence.
Yeah.
So you're just looking for permission to talk to,
No, again, it was a
Should bring it to our-
discussion and planning, so the
Sure.
idea is we're discussing that this is an issue, so you're aware of it.
It's an issue.
If there are suggestions that you have, but my suggestion moving forward is that, like I said, working with highway department to try to come up with a plan to mitigate this, and then come back in April and present something.
sounds good.
The other piece is somebody has to pay to fix this.
What?
Yeah,
The other piece is somebody has to pay to fix this.
yeah,
I mean, it's not,
We fix
it's,
it every year? Does it get fixed?
nope.
It's the worst it's ever been.
yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, but, I mean,
But remember, this is the ground is just thawing now, right? So as soon as we get a rain,
Yeah, that's
or
true. It's
it's
gonna be a
gonna
mess.
turn into a nightmare.
all right. So, please park in the parking lot at Castle in the Trees,
Not in the grass.
or in the mud.
I got a ticket. Parking on a surface not intended for parking.
Yes.
Yeah, you're laughing. That was.
All right, item 10, Tim's gonna be really quick with us, he promised.
Super quick.
Statistically valid survey update.
All right, great. So, in the back of your packet, there's just kind of a little info thing. The first one with the girl with the backpack is from the ETC Institute. The second one is from RCC and Associates. It's just kind of a high level, kind of this is what we do. These are kind of the two companies that really kind of responded back and have interest in this. RCC is the company that is currently doing the survey for Brookline. So they are currently in the process. If you want to check out what Brookline's survey looks like, if you Google it, they actually just opened it to all of the public to get on and take a look at now that they've gotten the responses. So just kind of a couple things there. I'm going to hand these down. They're not in your packet, so if you can just take one and pass it on down. So I've been working with a couple of people that I went to director school with and a couple other park and recs to kind of put together what this proposal is going to be. If you guys have time over the course of the next week or two, kind of read over this, send me, I can send you a digital copy if there's anything you see, but this is kind of just what our RFQ is going to look like. So the letter requesting everything, and then the table of contents, working through all the legal stuff. I was able to accomplish getting Fay Park, 300 King, Long Lake descriptions in there. Before I invested a lot of time, obviously I wanted to speak to you as well as Alicia. Do we want to, how much time do we want to spend describing those other pieces of town offices that we currently use? How is that going to change based off of our needs assessment that comes through from the town? So like I said, I didn't want to spend a ton of time putting that together. Reading through the objective, the project goals, the services and facilities that we're looking to get information on, and then basically started working on the legal stuff as far as the interview process, negotiations, and all that kind of stuff. So the pieces I'm working on is my next stop is to kind of look at the rest of the town's RFQs and what is the legal, the bid process, that whole stuff that we kind of attach to all of our things and add it to this. So the main thing I want you to review is, what facilities would you like to include in there? And under projects and goals, under general and program service facilities and parks, if there are any things that you would like to add or omit. And I do not need an answer about that right now.
You can add that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little frustrating. We could give you those answers tonight if we had gotten this before tonight. If we could get this information to us before the meetings, then we could like discuss this tonight. So and I know I sent you an email today asking for if you had anything for the survey that we could review prior to the meeting so that we had the information. So this would be, if we got this on Friday, we could have reviewed it over the weekend, jotted down some
just
questions.
typed this from 5 to 7 o'clock.
Okay. Well,
And to be fair, it has been absolutely crazy in the office. There's a lot
No,
of
I know,
things that
but
popped up.
it seems like there's things like that we get at this meeting that we could have
Yeah.
gotten a couple days ahead of time to be able to be prepared for the meeting to have a discussion.
Yep, I hear you.
That's all.
Yep, that's fair.
Okay, so we'll review that. Can you send that electronically?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just be easier. When I lose this hard copy, I'll be able to search right in my emails. That was 10:11, Director's Report.
Okay, so, big thing in this one is that I just want to go back over the 2021 budget. Last month, we talked about what we did get, what we didn't get. So I had to go back through and figure out how to reduce a deficit, right? Because going back to it, the town, the items that I requested that were affecting this budget were 30% of wages from the community ed coordinator, 30% of wages from the administrative assistant, and full-time employee benefits. So essentially, not essentially, it was a deficit of $111,000, 656, yeah. I can't risk it as.
$111,656.
Thank you, Assessor Fred. So I worked over the course of, in between the last meeting to this one, so I reduced the amount down to $45,963. So what I am requesting is that we transfer that amount of money from the PRCE Enterprise Reserve into the 2021 fiscal budget to balance out the funding. And like I said, I moved other stuff around and tried to figure out how to cover the rest. It's just that chunk that, we would need to bring that over from the
What do we have in the
reserve.
reserve at the moment?
I think we have about 150,000. So ideally, this is not a trend that I want to go. I
It's not
don't-
sustainable, huh?
It's not sustainable. Well, and that's the whole point that I've made about trying to get the support from the town. I think the one piece that was misunderstood or not represented properly when it was discussed at the Board of Selectmen meeting is that in general, so Lisa Paradis, who used to be the director of Parks and Recreation, she came, you guys, some of you will remember, and did a cost analysis in 2016. And so she's kind of become a, how do you want to say, like a presenter and somebody that's really known about financial aspects of Parks and Recreation. She does a lot of consultation at this point in time. So one of the things that she had said, I guess, at a Massachusetts Municipal Association conference was that enterprise funds for Parks and Recreation are typically funded by the towns or cities at 20%, right? So that is a typically true statement. However, we are not a typical enterprise fund, because a typical enterprise fund would be also funded with either having an aquatic center, a community recreation center, or a golf course, or some combination of those three in general. And as we are right here, right now, we have none of those things, right? So when we did the cost analysis in 2016, her report essentially said that we were 70% sustainable and we needed 30% help from the town. So, you know, as time's gone on, we figured out how to sort of balance things out a little bit more, where we could get rid of indirect costs. We did a really big thing last year by removing the credit card fee, right? So that was like $20,000 that we were just like eating a year that, you know, we got to be able to keep that back. So, you know, we'll keep continuing down that trend of figuring out how to spread all these costs appropriately across all of the programs, but we have to be really careful about how we do that as well, because we don't want our prices to skyrocket. That's part of our mission statement. So that's that delicate line that we're kind of balancing. So like I said, this is not a trend that I want to move towards, where we're going to be taking money out of reserve every single year. I think we definitely need to do it in this case. Just we've had a lot of financial issues over the last few years that every department's trying to figure out how to get back to a baseline again. So this is our way of being able to do that. I also want to move forward next year and try to work with individuals to create a Friends of. So hopefully a Friends of Parks and Recreation can, you know, fundraise and create those funds to be able to support some of the programs, again, so we don't have to go back to the reserve, which is our rainy day fund, if, you know, we need something in the future.
How'd you lower it by 70K?
I'm magic. I'm just magic.
Yeah.
Moved
Jeez.
stuff around, figured it
Not
out.
taking pay.
Everything you have listed here seems to be pretty, doesn't seem like there's any fat, right? It's like,
But that's the thing, we are like strapped down, so.
Some of that
we-
stuff's gonna be super hard to obtain.
It is, so our
It's another reason why
staff's
we
gonna
can't
have to
afford
hustle.
water at the parks.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to transfer that if there's no further discussion.
So you guys, sorry, you have to make two. One would be to, yes, the transfer, and then two, to approve the article to go into the town warrant.
Okay,
Okay?
so I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $45,963.
I move that we approve transferring $45,963 from the enterprise reserve into the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to put said transfer on the warrant for town meeting.
make a motion to put said transfer onto the warrant for town meeting, spring town meeting.
Can I clarify that one?
Yes. Clarity?
Motion to vote to approve to the amended fiscal year 2021 budget article for the May 2020 town meeting. There you go, Fred.
Okay, I move that we vote to approve the amended Park Recreation Community Education Fiscal Year 2021 budget article for the May 2020 town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I can read.
Good man.
So,
The last thing I'm looking at, next meeting, originally, the next meeting was on the 14th.
I'm sorry, what was that, Mike?
I had the next Park and Rec meeting in April on the 14th. That's the second Tuesday. We're changing it?
No.
Yeah, that is the third Tuesday.
That's the third Tuesday, yeah.
No. March, April,
They're gonna say it's your birthday.
14th. Okay. No, it's the 14th.
That was February 14th, right?
Did we do that because of April vacation week?
I think we moved vacation.
What is
We
it?
moved it to, we
April
moved it
vacation
to
week is
April.
like 21st.
No, that, yeah, we moved it to, so no, that was, I must have mistaken that in my calendar. So it is the 14th, so
Okay.
I will change and amend that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other highlights?
All of the job analysis questionnaires, so the town hall is creating a compensation in class project. So it's like a multi-step project, so all of our staff have completed their job questionnaires. I've sat down and reviewed them with everybody, so that's gone to the next process and will go off to the human resources. I think they're trying to get something before town meeting, but I don't know if that's realistic. But this will be a really good class and compensation study report that we get back. What else? Spring field use meeting was conducted, so I'm working on the final draft to be able to make sure that all the requests are written down in that agreement. Those are kind of big things.
Okay. All right, great. Events, Tim.
Yeah, so we had a wonderful community event the other night at the UMass Lowell Riverhawks. We had 156 of the community members and Acton Boxborough Youth Hockey. There was a blue and white squirt game, which if anybody signs on and takes a look at the pictures, yours truly, Mike Prue, officiated, and came out, no worse for the wear. But
That you know of.
it was
You got
pretty,
some good skate skills.
it was pretty cool to see all the kids out on the ice and all the parents and family and community members watching the game prior to. And then, it was a great community event. All the kids were right down against the glass right behind the goalie, and they seemed to have a great time. So, we're going to definitely put it back into the mix for next year.
Yeah.
Talked to John Healy today. So,
I got nothing but positive, positive is an understatement. The feedback I got from the organization is, they're looking forward to doing it again next year. It was well run. It was we could have used another locker room, but that's out of your hands, Tim. But it was fantastic. The kids had a blast at the game, on the ice, and then afterwards as well. So it was a huge success from Acton Boxborough Youth Hockey's perspective, and we thank you and Park and Rec for inviting us to do it, and it was awesome.
Can we do something similar for the Lowell Spinners?
yeah,
What's that?
so we do that every year.
Okay.
So, kind of running down the list to give you kind of an update on where we're at. So April 12th, we're supposed to have the egg hunt and community egg hunt and candy scramble. At 300 King. We are going to kind of pay attention to what's going on with coronavirus and everything. Right now, the recommendation from the CDC is not to have any events with more than 50 persons. As we get closer to that date, this board can weigh in. Obviously, Board of Selectmen and Nina will weigh in as well. So we're going to have to look at that. Community Cleanup Day is
It'll be difficult to chime in because our next meeting is on the 14th, and this is on the 11th, right?
I have a feeling that
We're just-
that directive will come from town
Yeah.
management.
I'll go over that after
Yeah.
this, but
I mean, we can simply say to Alicia and Tim, just
We don't
abide
think
by
so.
whatever the
Yeah.
town decides. We're not going to.
Okay.
So, moving on, April 25th is going to be the townwide community cleanup day. We're looking for, volunteers. Like I said in the last meeting, the real spirit of the event is if we can get everybody to go out, clean the front edge of their yard, and then get a team and go clean up, the place in town that bothers you the most, where you see the most trash. Definitely do that. The common convenience, if you pick up a bunch of nip bottles, I'm told that if you bring in an X number amount, he gives out lottery tickets.
Oh,
So go
nice.
test out your luck on that.
Reaching the town.
So it's, April 25th, 8 to noon, get as many people out there as we can. We'll sign, student volunteer forms. They'll be readily available at the barbecue. So please help us get out there. It's been a great event the past 2 years. And then we generally get some sponsorships to host a barbecue in Fay Park where we just do burgers and chips and stuff. So that'll be going on. To answer Mike's question, after that, we do have a Littleton Community Night at the Lowell Spinners. The Lowell Spinners, the tickets are available on our website under the Facebook events page. Click on the tickets. It'll take you to our link where you can reserve seats. The nice part of the Lowell Spinners is that they give $3 back from every single ticket purchased to Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball. So Dan Sheffrin and his crew, they work with us on that. It is Celtics night, so there will be players there, past players to sign autographs and take pictures. They will also be doing the Field of Dreams at the beginning where players line up on the bases from the youth organization and stand there on the baseline for the national anthem, and then kids run the bases at the end of the game. Kind of on a sadder note, if anybody saw the Today Show a couple weeks ago, the Lowell Spinners are one of the teams that Major League Baseball is looking to eliminate, so this could be the last season, your last opportunity to do this. If you haven't seen the Today Show piece on it, we put a link up on our website a couple weeks ago, so kind of go back and look at it. But it is kind of a piece of Americana that this could be your last opportunity to get out to Lowell and see a Spinners game for community night with us.
What night?
It is Friday, June 25th, and the nice part about it is a 5:05 start. So it gets you out of the park a little early.
27th, Saturday,
25th, it's Friday night,
6th.
26th. So Friday, 5:05 start, Hudson Valley Renegades, Lowell Spinners, and then everybody who tuned in before knows exactly what we're going to be doing this summer. So that's it.
All right, great, thanks. I think the only thing left we have to discuss is the coronavirus from our standpoint update.
Yep. So, COVID-19 or coronavirus. So, we had a very in-depth conversation at department head meeting today in town. So, I don't know if the statement is still true because I was reading some articles on my way right before I came over, but earlier today, Massachusetts was still listed as a low-risk state, but I think there's a possibility that that could possibly change by tomorrow.
Governor Baker put a
Correct.
state of emergency.
Correct. So the one thing with that is that I think it's like 70 individuals. It was all located out of like one meeting.
Like the
company,
Biogen conference.
Correct, yeah. So, not that, really changes anything, but when you're looking at like the state as a whole, you've got like a containment area, so.
Middlesex County has the most cases of any other county.
So, as we move on, we're going through this day by day, right? The things that we talked about today were, the town definitely wants to take precautionary measures. So just for the safety of all of our residents that are here. So we'll be asking town hall visitors and PRCE patrons not to attend programs or events if they have traveled to an area with a COVID-19 outbreak or coronavirus, or are experiencing any of the coronavirus symptoms, such as a fever that is 100.4 degrees, not 104, 100.4 degrees, or higher, a cough, and a shortness of breath. And there is, if you want like more clarification of the difference between like what the regular flu is versus this versus like allergies, right? You can find out information about that, but essentially those are the three symptoms that go along with it. Typically, like a flu, you'll have like the aches and pains and things. That doesn't necessarily come with this. So fever, cough, shortness of breath. So on March 25th, we had scheduled a bus trip to go to Encore. So at this point in time, because a large number of the participants are seniors, we are going to reschedule that to a date in June or July, further off. So we'll be contacting all of those individuals and letting them know that tomorrow. And then as we go along, one of the things that Mikey hit on is that, you know, our department's going to implement any additional policy changes that are indicated by the town administrator's office or the Board of Health as we go along. So we will naturally go along with what's coming down the pipeline from up above, and, you know, honestly take it day by day. So, but those are the big things. Like if you have been visiting either any of those locations that have had an outbreak, or if you have those symptoms, please, you know, either go into that self-quarantine, and definitely, you know, we don't want you sending kids to programs. We don't want you to come to pick up basketball. Those are the type of things that, you know, think about the other people around you and making sure to not spread that outside. So that's kind of our update on where we are right now. So
Okay.
questions, comments, concerns?
No. You guys? All right.
Move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Fred. Second? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Everybody's
Aye.
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 We're all set. Thank you.
All right.
Change the clock.